A hand lifts in the street, two fingers flicking like a metronome, and the first crack splits the tramway's ash-choked air. A helmet jumps, spins, and rolls until it kisses a rail with a hollow clatter that carries farther than the body. The NCO is gone, and what was a measured advance flattens into rubble. Dusk leans in, gusts move plaster dust like surf, and for the first seconds, nobody moves. A company drops into the discipline of a single hidden trigger while the light dies and the Oro 200 window creeps closer than any of them want to admit. The second shot pings off the tram rail near the center line, steel singing thinly like a struck string. The third drops down a stairwell and blooms from under the men on the right, as if the floor itself fired. A lantern dies 2 doors down. In the confusion, a company hears 3 rifles, 3 floors, 3 streets, and keeps breathing because obedience is the only steadiness they can touch. Lenz, chin and grit, marks angles in his head and feels weight where he cannot see any. The street looks simple, 12 meters of broken tram bed between a faceless west wall and a burned-out east block. But its simplicity is a lie. Attic slats carry sound like an instrument. Broken courtyards catch wind and pump it steady as bellows, and the tram's steel spine turns impacts into statements. Sokolov has pre-sighted the center line because steel answers steel in ways brick never will. His cheek weld is a habit. He times squeezes to gusts, so dust from the muzzle folds into other dust, a small erasure he's counting on as much as the rifle's glass. He has a day stretched across his ribs and 24 cartridges wrapped in oilcloth like promises. The Oro 200-0215 slot he has protected for 2 nights is the real clock that runs him. In cellars below, rumors move on dead pipes, not air. 3 taps, pause, 1, pause, 3. Cold iron carries that code where mouths cannot. Corporal Anya Petrov presses her ear to a chipped radiator, the metals chill in her skull sharper than air. Her other hand counts the answers under a wool cuff. The street believes a platoon is in these walls. The pipe is their throat. She is its tongue. Her heel already edges toward a doorway because her next run must happen between flares that haven't started yet and the mortar crew's tube swap she knows is coming. Lenz lowers until his chin collects ash, elbows making a slow track, eyes collecting corners. He has the manual in his head and a yard of black and white doctrine he trusts. Muzzle smoke stains, brass in shadows, footprints where a favorite rest leaves its curve. He fingers a strip of white cloth to tag a nest when he finds it and keeps moving because Weber said, "Find the holes," and he is a man who likes to be right. Sokolov moves when the wind says his name. In a second-floor room, skinned to studs, he draws the bolt with pressure that's more breath than muscle, rolls to an elbow among pantry bones and torn labels, and worms behind brick he stacked into a small, mean loophole angled toward the rail. Cotton kills any ring on the sling swivels. His scarf eats anything like a click. The first hide he warmed is already cooling. Attic hatch above, pantry hole here, stairwell mouth across the hall, angles like a clock he turns by feel. Weber forces himself to breathe through his nose and put smell back into the background. He has a candle he can't use, a map marked in grease pencil with corners that repeat like a bad dream, and a deadline he can feel. The company is under strength. 2 MG-34 teams, a 50mm mortar section, not enough grenades. His old trinity, pin, flank, flood, goes loud when he needs quiet. He halts and compresses, buys minutes with caution. He doesn't yet know every minute he hesitates is one Sokolov wants him to spend. Gusts walk the street like invisible men counting 1, 2, 3. Sokolov counted papers tumbling 2 hours ago and pinned the wind at 20-25 from the west. He times shots to gusts not to hide the rifle's voice. Nothing hides sound here, but to make dust signatures disappear in moving ghosts. He can't make more cartridges. He can shape when their sound changes minds. A cellar slit coughs up a periscope built from a dental mirror, and Petrov steadies it with thumb and forefinger. Her boots are holes with laces. One sleeve won't thaw because someone else's blood has layered and glazed it. Through the mirror she sees Weber's shadow lean, an MG team plant behind a cart axle, a hand gesture toward the corner that took the first shot. The illusion of numbers depends on variety. Don't repeat angles. Misalign cause with effect. Make them find men where there are none. She taps the pipe again and pictures Sokolov's shoulders moving like tide from attic to pantry to stair, and she edges toward the next mouth she'll have to cross. The second firing point is a sympathy, a pantry eye no wider than her thumb. Through it, Sokolov sets the rail at the bottom edge of glass. He doesn't aim at men. He aims at metal, at a note he can play. A round into steel will sing, and the echo down the street will make Lenz look east, while the real shot peeled from west. He knows what ricochets do to memory. He intends to have Weber brief his own affirmations while truth sits 1 meter away in darkness. The mortar section crouches into place like men trying to nap in frost. A 5-centimeter tube settles between loose bricks and a frozen sandbag. A loader breathes warmth over a fuse he can't feel. Smoke will be later. For now, Weber needs the threat held, pin here, MG there, a whisper about crossing when whistles go. He has sent Lenz and another scout forward, no more. He measures the corridor as something to seize and pass through. He does not measure what patience is building across from him. Lenz finds a crisp boot print crossing a toppled door and arcing toward a brick throat. Manual says fresh prints equal heat. Heat equals activity. He raises a hand, and the man behind him freezes. The print's edges are too neat for chaos. It occurs to no one that neatness itself can be a lie. He moves a forearm and feels ash take his elbow's shape. A strap creaks, and he hopes the gust will cover it. Upstairs, the bolt sticks a hair. Sokolov wiped it with a diesel rag hours ago so sweat won't freeze it, and now he feels dust catching in oil like sand in honey. He doesn't swear. He lifts twice, slow, breath on glass, and rides the bolt forward with the care you'd give a cracked tooth. He knows metal remembers hurry like insult. He files the resistance away as a cost he will have to pay at an ugly moment. Weber signals left and under toward the mouth Lenz marked. The right MG coughs bark out of a cornice, the left holds to spare belts. Down the block a laugh floats and dies in wind, memory, not sound, and Weber clenches his jaw and counts in his head to stay out of that room. He gives himself 5 minutes to take the corner and knows his paper says more. His bones say less. Petrov slides through an unlit doorway and counts breaths, seconds between gusts, the way eyes look forward. She keeps plates spinning not by strength, but by time. She taps 313 and imagines Sokolov's hand sliding over brick. Chalk sits in her satchel with a coil of wire bound with rags, a broom that is also a promise. She hasn't used it yet. The temptation to sweep the truth has to wait for the night. The next report climbs a stairwell and drops its voice down the center like a stone into a well. The casing doesn't clink on boards because the floors are gone. Brass ticks once against a wall and falls into a darkness that eats sound. Men on the street swear the shot came up from a cellar. A lantern goes out 2 doors down, killed by hands convinced they're bracketed. Muzzle flash and impact refuse to be a couple. Geometry becomes impossible on purpose. The gust misses its beat. Sokolov waits with his finger resting. When the wind returns, he sends one into the rail, and a fan of sparks lifts. The MG team reads sparks as target and rakes the wrong facade. Bricks cough dust. Wind carries it like hair. Petrov watches through the trembling mirror and grins without joy. Her ear stays on iron. Her free hand is already on the next wall. Under a plank pile, a wounded German lets a practiced Hilfe out. His tone is too shapely to be despair. He is bait. Sokolov has heard this wound before, snow and a voice, and the shot that answered it. He puts his crosshair not on the cry, but on the shadow angled away from it, where a helmet lip will peek to judge. He isn't interested in mercy. He is interested in men who risk a look when someone asks for it. Weber watches science fray. Men stare at empty windows. Make a man stare long enough and resolve drains out through boot soles. He wants loud to scrape courage back, but he keeps the chain on it. When dusk hits, he'll loosen, will let flares work like day in 5-minute slices. He thinks in belts, tubes, charges. He thinks he's chasing 3 rifles. He is being led by one. Sokolov has the night chalked already, thin lines inside walls where feet will touch, crate drags marked out to the minute when flares falter and the mortar crew will swap a tube. He has protected a nothing window on a map, because from Euro 200 to Euro 215 it will be worth more than any trench. Everything until then is patience and punishment. Every shot is a signal. Every silence louder than a crack. Wind rises and with it plaster dust, tendrils thick as breath. Its friend and danger both. A sliver of glass at his old hide caught the last light. The glint ran like a needle. Weber's eye caught it. He filed it under proof, raised a hand, and marked that height. He didn't have flares earlier. He has them now, and the day narrows fast. Petrov's runner route is lattice through cellars, marked by gestures 5 people share. She pauses at a knee-high hatch, listens into dark. The pipe comes alive. 3, 1, 3. And she feels the beat change. She taps back twice to tell Sokolov to abandon the attic and commit to the pantry hole. Out on the street, the MG team that should be watching that slit is sandbagging a window that never fired. Lenz swallows grit and pride together. The boot print on the door looks ceremonial. He reports track, nest, approach with his hands. He trusts tracks because feet never lied to him before. He hasn't met felt-wrapped soles used to write in dust. He starts the belly crawl toward 3 brick mouths. Behind him, the mortar crew lays smoke positions but holds fire. They will make a white room later, after light cuts the sky. For now, Weber wants threat, not fog. Sokolov budgets risk like a miser. Smoke can blind him in his shaft and lure Germans into speed they don't own. On the 2nd floor, the pantry loophole is perfect. Triangle cut into brick with a bent tool, high enough to kneel, narrow enough to hold flash. Sandbags slope in an arc beneath it, frost in the joints. It's a miniature masterpiece, and it's cold. Lenz will touch brick and find no warmth, no oil sweat, only old brass. He will still want to believe. A minute becomes 2. Dusk goes thin and blue. Weber circles the same corner on the same paper a 3rd time like prayer. He's not superstitious until light fades. He rubs his wedding band under the glove and can't tell which finger it's on. He sets his jaw and keeps the plan simple. Flares, smoke, suppress, probe. Sokolov's bolt yields late, then reluctant. He should strip it. There is no time. He cycles once, twice, quiet, making his hands part of the rifle. Cotton is tight on swivels. He plants his cheek gentle, aware of the tremors he can't control. He files the stickiness again, a small dread for later. A child's cough comes from the left cellar. It is real. Petrov closes her eyes for a half-second and locks the sound away. She cannot be the person who goes. One wrong exposure topples the scaffold. The Germans will see 3 bodies where they heard 30. She waits for the next gust. The city still breathes like a lung. The left MG breaks discipline. 2 long belches stitch an already ruined wall. The loader counts under his breath. A tracer kisses the rail, and for a second metal seems to light from within. Lenz reads Lyda's instruction, speeds his crawl a fraction, which is what the street has been waiting for. Sokolov lifts his eye off glass to look whole. Wind, dust, flare gun coming free of a holster he can't see. White and green will loop the sky in 5-minute cycles. He will have to move between them like a creature living on saccades. He draws smoke off a burnt cupboard and tastes sugar that isn't there. The rail is memory. It has been the city's spine longer than any uniform. It carries notes better than walls and makes impacts into instruments. Sokolov believes in physics more than ghosts. He plays distance and echo until a sound lives where it didn't start. He is not magician. He clerked this street for hours. Weber's hand lifts without looking up. Silence answers so perfectly, it startles him. He speaks into it. Smoke, suppress, probe. He assigns times to actions. He leaves no line item for the unseen and will pay for that. He reads Lenz's print as path to the fight he knows. Rooms, fronts, flanks. He is walking into a fight that's been reframed. Petrov tastes plaster like chalk dragged across a tongue and moves, a gray smear in gray. Her hand brushes the wire-wrapped broom in her satchel, the thing that will erase truth later. She is 2 hours ahead in her head. She is also in this breath, counting the steps to a door whose frame leans like it wants to fall. Wind kicks up ash so fine it looks like breath. In that smothering veil, Lenz reaches the place where signs agree and holds his hand stiff without looking back, as if he's found a vein to mine. The footprint points like an arrow toward 3 black mouths in brick, exactly as doctrine would like. He spreads his fingers for the MGs. It feels right. It is wrong. The arrow was set to be found. Flares go up like mushrooms growing too fast. White snaps, hisses, and turns smoke into liquid. Shadows go hard and long. Every bottle shard screams light. Every slit becomes a mouth. In that light, the old brick staggers, and the rail throws a cold sheet back at the sky. Sokolov is back behind the pantry hole. He fires at steel, not flesh. The rail shrieks and sprays sparks, and the MG rakes the wrong window, chewing brick into dust that blows east. He slips off the bag, the bolt catches, and he bites his lip not to curse out loud. That stick will eat a minute he doesn't have later. Weber sees a glint, trivial and catastrophic, up on the 3rd window where a shard of glass slid. He doesn't know if it's scope or junk. He points anyway. The left MG shifts. He calls for flares, white and green, 5, 5, and orders a chalkboard out to track times. He puts light on a metronome and intends to staple the ghost to it. Sokolov recognizes the cost. He takes the shot through his ribs. The report drops into the stairwell and comes up new. The MG gunner's head snaps and he folds. The assistant's hands go to the body because habit is quicker than grief. The second MG coughs harder. Smoke pours down the stair core in a reverse waterfall, filling landings with white. Sokolov's scope has flakes on it like snow. He can't see down the shaft far enough to lie convincingly. He has to leave. He rides the bolt and hears grit, catalogs it, and moves. Weber feels the shot touch everyone at once. He doesn't believe in ghosts. He believes in someone clever enough to be 3 voices rotating. He wants to peel buildings, but every step inside is commitment he can't retract when the street opens. He orders crawlers, 2 per frontage, low and slow. Illumination becomes official. 5 up, 5 off, green when signaled. He is now measuring fear with a watch. Petrov, in a cellar where stairs have slumped into a slide, puts her ear to the cold pipe and waits past patience. 313 comes faint, like a small heartbeat. She counts with her tongue against her teeth like a spell. She maps the route: kitchen with the collapsed pantry, the room where a table sits against the ceiling, the hall with doors breathing white at the base. She does not think of how this route will break under one bad hit. She holds breath and runs. The wounded German calls again. The cry is calculated. It rides the rail and turns in on itself. Sokolov sands down his own impulse to answer. If he shoots at sympathy, Weber gets a timestamp. If he doesn't, men may believe the corridor safe. He aims where a helmet will lift to safety check and waits for a blink to punish. White blooms and grinds the street into a plate. Brick glows at edges. Tram rails become polished ribs. Two bodies in one MG nest still, covered in dust like snow. In that clean light, the decoy nests look truer. Lenz slides to the first. Cold brick. No breath, no grease. The second is the same. The third deep cut into the wall has dust smooth as icing and brass in a museum pile. A thread of wire and cloth snagged in brick, broom hair, is a tell he doesn't fully register. He wants steadiness more than truth. He holds his voice because he needs to be right one more minute. Weber absorbs contradictions and changes the angle anyway. He staggers smoke so stairwells backfill consistently. He moves the intact MG to an oblique where the rail's false note will draw fire that his gun can answer crosswise. He tells a boy to chalk flare times big on a wall, their dust drifting like dry snow. He imagines the stairwell as a well and the shot as a bucket dropping. He will try to strike the well itself. Night folds over in stingy layers. White, green, dark, then white again. 5 minutes that move like a hand on a back. Wind scrapes ash along rails and makes a hiss Sokolov can hide a small sound in. He keeps his sentences short. Move, plant, hold. He keeps his bolt honest twice and pays for haste once. He counts again, 20 left, 18, 15. He hates counting. It calms him anyway. Smoke invades, not just obscures. It pours down landings, puts the sweet bitter into throats, makes eyes weep and men cough. Sokolov adjusts his aim to fringes and edges, to a knee under a far lip, and takes a low shot that goes off in the hiss of a flare. The knee jerks back like a puppet, and the bolt sticks again, gummy once more. He rethinks where to fight the rifle and where to fight the street. The pantry hole won't forgive noise. He slides away. He'll pay later for abandoning a perfect angle. A stray mortar rounds collapses part of Petrov's route, plugging a corridor with a new wall of brick and timber. Dust falls in a draft that smells old. Her bare fingers find fresh edges cold enough to sting. She can't go open where their numbers would be counted correct by eyes. She presses the pipe. It answers nothing. She listens for Sokolov's tap and hears only flare burn. The decision weighs in her palm, up and over into light, or wait and let the window close. The bait cry stops being bait and becomes duty noise. A man deciding to keep talking because it keeps him alive. Sokolov wants to spend a round and end it. He doesn't. He waits for the next flare and for Weber's rhythm to stretch too far. He hears the flare being drawn and knows the next 5 minutes are another page of the same book. He plans to tear one corner of that page and is careful not to do it where Weber can tape it back. Weber drops his faith in being done by dusk right as night takes its seat. He admits to himself, not out loud, that time has become a problem he can't shoot. He orders probes keyed to light. 2 men crawl when flares rise, 2 when they die, always with rope and a loop, because rope is certainty and loops pull. He tells himself he's cutting the resupply window in half by being present inside it. He doesn't admit that by being there, he is also a marker for someone else's clock. Time is officially his enemy, and he declares war on it with chalk and hissing stars and men going white with plaster. Sokolov hears the street change. Not louder, not quieter, more mechanical. Flares become metronome, stairwells become lungs that smoke. He rotates hides, attic hatch for rail, pantry for angle, stair landing for voice. He omits shots on purpose and watches Weber overfill the absence. Once, Glint winks. He kills it with elbow, so glass falls like rain and men jump at sounds in 9 places. He drops 1 round down the stair and makes a bell. Weber answers with a blind grenade, 2 buildings off, and by Sokolov, 12 seconds of dust. Weber tells himself clever is not the same as many. He draws a second line of attack to the left balcony, where the ironwork sags. He stops the right-hand smoke for one cycle to clear air and catch a clean shot. He orders the mortar tube swap forward 5 minutes because he fears the counter-mortar SOP he's read is about to hit him. He chalks new times. His own change breaks his own rhythm. He is now an instrument a stranger might play. Petrov breathes, peels off the scarf to hear the sky, and counts back from the last pop. The open is 12 meters, and the rail will sing if she lets a crate ring it, and a song like that is someone else's trick. She taps the pipe one last time and goes. Belly down, elbows in. She makes herself a smear, not a shape, and moves to wind and white, not to courage. Sokolov sees motion as noise changing, not as body. A smear rides negative space between smoke and brick. Too low for a helmet, too fluid for an old man doing a new crawl. Petrov. He wants to fire up into air, to drag heads up and away, but sound is coin he must spend only with purpose. He shoots the rail ahead of her. Sparks flop and sing. Heads turn wrong. She presses into floor and becomes absence. 1 mg panics and stitches an old facade. A tracer shoots the balcony jaw and showers the street with teeth. A man cries out with his jaw half torn, and Weber's fingers go white on leather. The street has settled into a habit he hates. Slow bites he can't see, their pattern perfect enough to be an idea. He looks at his watch and sees lines, not numbers. He makes a sound in his throat that isn't command. The periscope mirror shows the street upside down. White becomes black. Men become cutouts. Chalk gleams like veins under certain light. Sokolov angles the mirror to see the crates being dragged, and the chalk rectangles Weber's men are painting on their own side. Lines and X's and arrows. He smiles with his teeth shut, not from joy, but because a mirror might translate how this night has been written. The jam comes back. Sokolov anticipates the catch and lifts slowly. No dice. He has to pop the handle with the side of his fist, a dull note that ants through wood. The sound will live somewhere in Weber's ear later. For now, it gives him one more cartridge up and home. He spits into the channel, a stupid trick, old and private. He rides the bolt closed and goes back to glass. Petrov reaches the radiator pipe on the far side and taps with a nail through glove leather. 313. The pipe answers faint after a beat. Whether it's an echo or him, she takes it. She is now forward of plan with the route behind broken, and she will have to cross the wedge Weber's flares build to trigger the Zhou 200 chain. There's no other way, no other. Weber burns flares faster and closer, 2-minute intervals, white and green alternating, to force a different rhythm and to deny any dead gap. He orders the mortar tube swap now because swallows and spits have gotten too predictable. His men are streaked with soot and flare juice. He thinks they look like animals in a lab. He orders the half-track engine to cough and stall, so the counter battery will have to pick the mortar cough out of that mess. He doesn't know he also just handed Petrov the cover sound she needs. Sokolov hears the pattern change. The window slides under his feet. The chalk lines he left for belly drags must now be read in a rhythm he didn't write. He shatters a piece of saved glass and lets it rain sound to make men flinch in 5 places. Then he fires at a brick to send a loud truth between those 5 lies. He moves before anyone can be sure which is which. Petrov pulls a strip of chalk and draws 2 new arrows on a floor that used to be a shop, aligning with dead zones between windows that no longer have frames. It isn't pretty, but it fits the wind. The engine coughs in 3 beats, and she moves to that, not the sky, because lungs are bigger than stars. She drags, stops, drags. The crate pings the rail because weight is heavy, and she misjudged the lift by an inch. She winces, then commits. 2 more pings make a tune too on the nose to shoot at. The stupid, obvious sound becomes an umbrella. Sokolov plants on the boy at the flare box and shoots his hand at the moment the cap comes off. The flare hisses crooked in the gutter. He won't get another clean 30 seconds like that. He cycles the bolt, grit again, and moves. He can't be in the same syllable twice when someone like Weber starts to make light his grindstone. Weber yanks the flare box toward himself, green in reserve, and feels the cost of taking ownership. He is now author and audience both. He calls for smoke into mouths of stairwells and tells the MGs to alternate like crossed wipers. Theater more than wall. The half-track's cough becomes an organ. He thinks it is his idea. It may be Sokolov's. Petrov pulls under the tramcar husk while the V of bullets passes high. Old wood smells like rope, and she feels each splinter nick her coat. The low flare crawls light along the ground like water, making every seam bright. She crawls in brightness because the brightness is only ankle high and her world is belly low. The men who will take crates from her have bare forearms gone pale under soot. She points with a whole hand, chalk lines, then down. No speech, no tap. Motion is the language right now. Sokolov kills the MG assistant when the man's head rises at the wrong time, belts sliding through dead hands into street. He counts the rounds without looking at them. Start of day 24, now 8 or 9 by weight. He shoots brick hard over where the deliberate call came earlier and lets the ricochet sing down into the rail. It is a note Lenz will recognize as a lie and still have to check. He drags himself 3 meters along torn floorboards with his elbow because he cannot become predictable, even to his own nerves. Lenz does not take the bait. He knows the rail song too well now. He throws a grenade into the stair core and pulls on the rope hard to make habit, out of caution. He blooms in empty air 2 floors up. He hates that he expected it. He sees a smooth channel in ash that ends in wire bristles, drag marks finished with a broom, and stops himself from feeling foolish by choosing anger. He loses it when his eyes settle on the broom's idea rather than the bristles. Cheap genius? He will not forget it. Weber's watch says 0152. He chooses something he doesn't love. He pulls the right back and pushes the left with the half-track on the next flare, speed and steel over subtlety, because subtlety has become someone else's meal. Smoke pauses for a cycle to make the field clean and loud. MGs cross arcs at the tramcar's belly. He knows the mortar tube is hot and swapping. The counter-mortar will lag. He intends to fill that vacancy with mass. Petrov slides through the seam and feels bullets pass like a cat rubbing ankles. She almost reaches for the broom because she wants to erase her own tracks. She doesn't because her job now is to be obvious enough to clog choices. She sees the first receivers down in the cellar mouth, hands ready, and she nods once. A decision is the quickest language there is. Sokolov thanks a machine's cough with a breath and uses it to hide the scrape his bolt makes. He stows the broom under a pipe. He returns to the attic hatch, which has given him the rail. He sets his cheek and makes his heartbeat part of the rifle. He will need 4 more minutes, maybe 6, and this spot still buys minutes better than any other. He buys them knowing he won't ever climb back through this hatch once this cycle breaks. Lenz shifts his plan, keeps his fire low and short, sends a man to smear chalk with a sleeve, not because he thinks it erases knowledge, but because it erases a moment's bravery. He makes the machine guns into fetch and carry, burst trading, to feel for a reply that isn't coming. He whispers stare and tosses a second grenade into a different well because noise has turned into a tool that can be sharpened both ways. Weber raises the green flare and his palm remembers heat in reverse. He loves and hates the color. He keeps the half-track coughing to smear signals. He knows he is jamming his own, but jamming is the only thing to do to a song you can't sing. He tells his driver to be ready, just be ready, and thinks the words sound like superstition. Petrov drags and pings and decides to make the pings music rather than mistakes. The obviousness works. A man who hears that much rail refuses to shoot at it. She rolls the crate over the center line with a smooth lift and feels the minute actually start. The first crate goes where it must. She turns back because there is no path until she erases some of it. Sokolov watches the half-track lunge and makes the nastiest small choice of the hour. Don't wreck the machine, wreck the hands. He hits the driver's thumb when the wheel must be straight. Steel noses into brick, stalls, coughs a death with no rhythm. The bolt locks hard. He drops the rifle flat and picks it by the mid-band, moves because staying is now a decision a stranger can predict. He ate a minute. He needs to vanish. Lenz's hand breaks open under a shot he did not see coming. He feels the cold metal of the grenade he hadn't primed bounce free and stop harmless. He pulls his hand under him like an injured animal and exhales through his teeth. He sees a boot and a rope and a small woman's heel under the tramcar and lifts his unhurt hand to motion hold, because he knows, without space for an essay, that shooting at her will get 2 men he likes killed. He makes himself complicit in the illusion to fight the bigger one. Weber's watch ticks, 0159. A swell rises that isn't panic. He hears himself choose. He calls off the push. Hold, he says, not because it is good, because moving is worse. First light will be clean, he tells them, and he says it with a flatness that makes it true enough to stand on. A runner goes to the mortar team. Sit on your hands until dawn. No exceptions. He tucks the flare box tight and keeps 1 green. He tells himself it's a bandage worth the wound to his plan. Petrov reaches the far mouth, taps 313 into the pipe, because rituals work even when they don't move metal, and shoves the crate down. Hands take it. She pivots and crawls back into street because the path is only finished if she forces a German to pick the wrong place to look while the last 2 boxes move. She drags the wire broom behind her and drags it across the chalk twice, enough to scuff, not to erase, and feels silly and necessary at once. Sokolov closes the bolt on an empty chamber and leaves it that way. If someone finds his rifle, it will look ready. He tucks oilcloth ends under his coat and straightens until his spine creaks. He lowers through the hatch and becomes air, and then wood, and then dust. He taps the pipe, 313, and lets his hand rest on iron that won't be warm. There is nothing left in the street that needs killing. The work is to become absence. Weber binds pencil and map with a rubber band, stripped from his wrist and pockets both. He finds his driver alive and tells him to sit still, tells the flareman's friend to gather sticks and not light one until told. He does math without eyes. He moves men by touch. He tells a runner to make coffee when the sky turns. He never says the word night again. Lenz winds a flag strip around his wounded hand and knots it with his teeth. Old dust tastes like a book. He picks up the broom, weightless and clever, and turns it once in his good palm. Wire white with plaster. A simple thought taught by time. He sets it back where it was because respect and theft aren't twins and because someone will need it in an hour. He leans his head on brick for account and opens his eyes because work is still work. At 0200, shapes crawl out and flatten into the street's breath. Belly down, hand over hand, crates bump along chalk that's scuffed into suggestion. They lift each box an inch at the rail so it doesn't ring. Flares are dark by choice. The mortar tube rests by doctrine Weber chose to obey out of anger, not fear. Wind carries the whisper of rope east, away from men, listening hard. One by one they vanish into cellars written days ago. What is left in the street is no more than 12 meters of ruined tram bed and the memory of sound. Dawn shows Weber a clean lie. Cold nests without bodies, sandbags shaped then abandoned, brass that could be from another day. The rail holds secrets he can't read. He steps out, The metal rings under his heel, soft as a bell remembered. He gestures left with 2 fingers and points right with a thumb, and men begin to move, because motion in daylight is a plan you can hold. A gust lifts ash, and a shape nobody counted appears. A broom of wire and cloth leaning in rubble, bristles white with plaster. The first light throws a stripe along the rail, and Weber's hand rises halfway between caution and command. He tilts his wrist. Forward. The rail answers with a thin, bright note, and boots lift from cover into the morning.